offerings really across the gamut of services all day for the volunteering in honor of Dr. King. And our offering here at InsightLA is really for our mental health. It's very difficult during this pandemic with no definite end in sight yet to sustain the good health of our bodies and our minds and deal with all of the challenges and losses that have come to us nationally, our families personally during this time. So today we're just going to offer some practical tools, some simple practices of mindfulness meditation, of loving kindness meditation, ways to stay grounded in our bodies, in the present moment, in a spirit of nurturing self-compassion and understanding how profoundly connected we are to each other, no matter what. So I'm just overjoyed to be here with you on this day of remembrance and mourning and celebration, the whole gamut, all of our human life encompassed here today. And I want to turn it over to Thomas Davis, who is going to begin.
Thank you, Trudy.
And this is the teacher one of our teachers at InsightLA, by the way.
Yeah, thank you so much, Trudy. Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Kathy. Thank you, InsightLA, our teachers, friends, guests, people, wherever you're logging in from. I just want to say thank you for taking time, taking that deep breath to come and show up here on this Zoom forum. And we're here with the purpose, as Trudy stated. We're here to not only offer teachings, but also to hopefully learn from you as well. And so we understand that we are in an unprecedented time. I think we've been saying this for the past 10 months or so, that we're in unprecedented times, and that has just ramped up even more as of January 6th. So I won't go into the details about that, but I will move forward understanding that everyone is holding this these intensities is what I'll call it, a little differently. And it's I don't think it's pleasant for anyone. So, I wanted just to begin by saying that I honor the memory of Dr. Martin Luther King. I feel that his work is still unfolding in this 21st century, and that we are all, what he's saying, even though it may have fell on some deaf ears back at that time, I think his lessons and his message and his purpose and his intent is just coming to a very sharp arrowhead in our time right now. And Dr. King, he wasn't only a Baptist minister, but he was a trained philosopher. And from that basis, he was able to really think critically about the social issues of the time and to, align himself with truths that could endure the times. And I think that we are currently at this time, we've all benefited from the studies and the introspections that he established and that he accomplished. And so I just wanted to just make a couple of points and offer something that I think may be of value for this particular time. January 6th was a very powerful day, and that day was hinged upon a lie. What all of the media says was a lie. The judicial system said was a lie, that the election was stolen, that it was fraudulent, that it was rigged. And so I just want to back up a little bit and offer something from another one of our nation's leaders, who is known as Dr. James Cone. And he was the leader of what was known as the movement called Black Liberation Theology. And so he was a scientist, he was a teacher at New York University. And he also was, at the same time as Martin Luther King, he was heading up ways to bring empowerment, particularly to the Black populations of in our country, right on the tail end of the civil rights movement. And this is what he offered. He offered this in juxtaposition to the lie. And he said, if we cannot recognize the truth, then truth cannot liberate, then that truth cannot liberate us from untruth. I'll say that again. If we cannot recognize what is true, then it cannot liberate us from untruth. To know the truth is to appropriate it, for it is not mainly only reflection and theory, but truth is divine action entering our lives and creating the human action of liberation. So the thing I'm pulling from that I'm parsing from that, is just a simple note, the idea that if we're not able to recognize what is true, then we're unable to be liberated from what is untrue. And in the context of these times, we have a lot of people who were being offered something that was true, or that they could at least investigate to see if it was true regarding, the political landscape, the election. But they weren't able to access what was being offered. So I think it's important for us to be able to, as practitioners at whatever level you're at, we are invited into this practice, into this philosophy, into these teachings that help us to sharpen and to increase our ability to recognize what is true in each unfolding moment. Furthermore, on this philosophical note, within the realm of philosophy, there are many different kind of algorithms that are offered to look at what is true, to investigate what is true. And I'll offer a set of four that I found to be really interesting. The first one is something called congruence. Something that is congruent simply fits the facts that we have available to us. It's something that's practical, and it just makes sense. It fits what we have at hand as far as something that's true. The second principle is consistency. A truth that is internally consistent basically has no contradictions within itself. The third one is coherence. And coherence basically is something that's coherent with everything else that we consider to be true. So it falls in line with our direct experience, with our thought experience, with the facts that we have. And the last one is that something that is true is also useful. And this usefulness of the truth that we're being offered or being asked to consider, it actually gives us some form of expression, some opportunity to master and to get better at something, to progress, to show some signs of movement and success. So congruence, consistency, coherence, and usefulness are four principles of ways that we could examine whether or not something is true. And that's from the philosophical world. I'm going to bring it one more level higher into the Dharma. And the Buddha offered four noble truths. The truth of suffering. The truth that we will experience dissatisfaction, discontent, unhappiness, sorrow. These are experiences that will visit us, that we will encounter with certainty in this life. The second truth is the truth of the cause of suffering, which is clinging or craving or not wanting to have the sorrowful, unpleasant, dissatisfactory experiences. The third truth is the truth that suffering, this dissatisfaction, discontent, unhappiness, sorrow, has a possibility to end. In this current time, we are feeling and seeing and hearing a lot of the dissatisfaction, the discontent. We're feeling it. And the question I wanted to pose to you is, as we move through these days, are we able to recognize the truth? The truth that suffering is part of life is a truth that has the possibility to begin our experience of liberation. The truth that we actually cling and don't want things to change, that we try to avert the unpleasant experiences, is a truth that can liberate. The truth and the good news about all of this is that suffering can end. And suffering can end in the midst of our present time situation as it unfolds, maybe in micro increments. But we can stay aligned and remember through our mindfulness practice these principles of truth. The fourth noble truth is the Noble Eightfold Path, which is the pathway to begin undoing our conditioning and our inability to remember some of the basic things about life that, hey, yes, life is suffering. Things have been great for X amount of time, and now it's not so great. But the first noble truth brings us back to the fact that, oh yeah, this is part of how it's supposed to be. I'm supposed to experience this. So the question is, and I fall back to Reverend Dr. James Cone, who said that if we cannot recognize the truth, then it cannot liberate us from untruth. So I just wanted to encourage you, InsightLA and all of our communities, to really investigate what's true through the Dharma. We are all walking this path together, and we have tools that can liberate, that can bring us into an experience of full liberation. But we have to just remember through our mindfulness practice that this is also a possibility. I can experience a modicum of liberation even in the midst of this chaos. So community, I would like to seal this with a short mindfulness practice with you. And I just invite you to take your shoes off if you need to lie down, if you want to just lean back. Don't do anything that's going to enforce your need to be perfect. Don't even act like a practitioner right now. We're just going to be human for a moment. And I invite you to take a breath with me on the count of 3 and allow that breath to allow your body to expand, hold it, and then contract by letting the air out on 3. 1, 2, 3, and inhale deeply. And release. And we're going to take that breath in again on the count of 3 and take it a little deeper if you can. 1, 2, 3. Inhale. And release. And as you release the breath, notice the subtle changes that the body is making, the adjustments it's making. Just observe and allow your attention just to come into the realm of the body, allowing the body itself to be your primary landing point, your area of focus. Allow even the thoughts and the breath itself to be unregulated for a moment. And even with your eyes open or closed, just align with the body, even if you're not comfortable with how it feels. Just allow yourself to notice that you have a body. And you're observing that body in whatsoever condition that it's in at this time. And we can just begin to see in micro moments just the intention of a quality of stillness. In this time, we really have to access our intention and our will, because this moment of solace, just to allow the body to come into just a brief period of quiet and stillness, is ours all of the time. Noticing the pleasant, the unpleasant, and all of the swirling neutralities that we can't even put a name to or ascribe any sort of significance to. But this is the body in this present moment. And we bring our attention to the body because whether we know it or not, the body is always in the present moment. 24 hours a day. The body is our signpost, our guiding light, our foundation for present moment experience. Without preference and without judgment. And can you recognize what's true in this moment? Truth always liberates. Even Jesus said, "You shall know the truth, and the truth shall set you free." So across philosophies and teachings, the truth itself is our ally for liberation. I want to say thank you and that you've done well and that you've been so courageous and that you've been so steadfast. And I would even say patriotic in allowing your heart to break for the condition of the country, to allowing yourself to feel the things that have unfolded. If you didn't care, you wouldn't be in such a disarray at this time. So on the count of 3, we'll take a deep breath together and we'll bring this portion to a close. And I'll allow Trudy and Sharon to come in and to continue our practice. On the count of 3, a deep breath. 1, 2, 3. Inhale deeply. And release. If we cannot recognize the truth, then it cannot liberate us from untruth. Reverend Dr. James Cone, Emeritus. Thank you.
Thank you, Thomas. Thank you so much for that. Really, thank you. Now I would like to introduce my beloved friend and colleague, Sharon Salzberg. Sharon's going to also offer some teaching and a practice for us.
Thank you so much. And thank you, Thomas, really so much for that. So thank you all for joining us as well. When I think of Dr. King, I often think about this one conversation I had with somebody who, his name was Miles Horton. He established a place known as then known as the Highlander Folk School. I think it has a different name now, which was in Tennessee. And it was a place where many movement people of different movements got together and kind of trained. And so Rosa Parks was there and Martin Luther King Jr. was there. And somehow Miles Horton was visiting a friend of mine who had to go to work. And so I got to spend this day with him. And we talked about meditation, which he was not all that interested in, but I said to him, like, what do you do? I mean, this was a situation, it was extremely controversial. It was an integrated place in the South, and he was always getting arrested, and, you know, they were being shut down. All kinds of things were going on. So I said, what do you do for peace, for solace, for perspective? And he said, I look at the mountains. I just sit and I look at the mountains. And then we got to talking about loving kindness meditation. And he said to me, he really wasn't that interested in that. And then he said to me, oh, Martin Luther King Jr. used to say to me all the time, you've got to love everybody. And I would say, no, I don't. I only have to love the people who deserve to be loved. I'm not going to love everybody. And Marty would laugh and laugh and laugh and look at me and say, nope, you got to love everybody. And when I don't often tell that story actually, but when I first began telling it, I noticed there was almost a uniform reaction I was getting from people, which was like, well, of course, look what happened to him. As though love was the problem. And as though if Martin Luther King Jr. had been vicious and contemptuous and divisive, that he would have been safe. And I think that points to kind of the degradation of love in our time and our understanding, and also a big misconception, because love in that sense doesn't mean you like everybody. It doesn't actually mean you necessarily like anybody. It certainly doesn't mean you're giving into their agenda, that you're not going to take a stand, that you are refusing to kind of stand up for values you hold that are very genuine, perhaps, and very deep. And that love is something kind of squishy and weak. And of course, it's not that at all. Certainly not in the sense of loving kindness, and not in the sense that Martin Luther King Jr. was talking to Miles Horton about. And so I think much more, and along the lines of what Thomas was just talking about seeing the truth, I think what we call loving kindness or love is empowered by the reality of how interconnected our lives are, that this is actually the truth of things. It's not saccharine, it's not sentimental. And the more aligned we are with the truth of things, the happier we are, the more powerful we are. Because anything other than that is like having a distorted relationship to what is, and it's like the proverbial banging your head against the wall. Whereas if we can come into harmony with how things actually are, we have a very different stance that can make effort and can try to do the good that's in front of us or change this world in a systems kind of way, whatever it is that our work is. But it's coming from a different place. It's coming from this kind of understanding. And that's actually what empowers it. So one of my favorite quotations from Martin Luther King Jr., it's a little bit odd or old-fashioned in its language in that he's ascribing various elements of our lives to different nationalities. But the long form of it is, it really boils down to this, that all life is interrelated. I have just lost my...
We can hear you, Sharon, now.
You're back, Sharon.
Okay, yeah, my document disappeared though. So let's try again. I just disappeared. That's just like life. Life in our lane. Here it is. Okay. It really boils down to this, that all life is interrelated. We're all caught in an inescapable network of mutuality, tied into a single garment of destiny. Whatever affects one directly affects all indirectly. We are made to live together because of the interrelated structure of reality. Did you ever stop to think that you can't leave for your job in the morning without being dependent on most of the world? You get up in the morning and go to the bathroom and reach over for the sponge, and that's handed to you by a Pacific Islander. You reach for a bar of soap, and that's given to you at the hands of a Frenchman. And then you go into the kitchen to drink your coffee for the morning, and that's poured into your cup by a South American. And maybe you want tea. That's poured into your cup by a Chinese. Or maybe you're desirous of having cocoa for breakfast, and that's poured into your cup by a West African. And then you reach over for your toast, and that's given to you at the hands of an English-speaking farmer, not to mention the baker. And before you finish eating breakfast in the morning, you've depended on more than half the world. This is the way our universe is structured. This is its interrelated quality. We aren't going to have peace on earth until we recognize this basic fact of the interrelated structure of all reality. So that is actually what loving kindness is living in harmony with that, understanding that truth. And so I'd like us just to do a short reflection, bringing this to life. So if you want to, again, just be comfortable, close your eyes or not. And we'll start with just see who comes to mind as having played any role at all in your being here as we are gathering here together right now. Somebody told you about this event. Somebody told you about meditation. They told you about their meditation practice. Somebody read you a poem once, played you some music, showed you some art. Just see who comes to mind, because nobody just like dropped in here accidentally, right? We're here because of conversations, interactions, encounters, relationships. This moment in time is a confluence of all of these, just as every moment in time is. So when I do this reflection, I sometimes think of the Board of Regents of the state of New York, which is a body that gives out scholarships. And they gave me a scholarship, which is how I was able to go to college. And it was through a college program that I went to India and studied meditation. So they're really a part of why I'm here right now. And sometimes I do this reflection and I think about those people whose actions have really challenged me, not just the ones I find annoying, but those moments when I felt I've got to find something deeper. I've got to find another way, because they're a part of my being here together right now with all of you. And think about the food that you've eaten today, even if it was not a distinct animal product. Somebody planted a seed in some soil and harvested a crop, transported it, prepared it, or sold it to you. Thich Nhat Hanh has this kind of contemplation where he'll hold up like a string bean and says, now see the world. You see the sun and the rain that nourish the soil. And we know everything now that affects the quality of that rain, which is so extensive. You look at that string bean, you see all of life coming together in that way. Think about the clothes that you're wearing. Same thing. We can recognize each moment as that kind of confluence. We can recognize ourselves as being part of a bigger picture of life. However alone or cut off we might sometimes feel, the reality, the truth, is that we live in an interconnected universe. And the heart's response to that is loving kindness and compassion. So thank you. Here we are, and I'm going to turn this over to Trudy.
Thank you, Sharon.
Thank you, Sharon. That was beautiful. Thank you, Thomas. Thank you, Sharon. I feel so lucky to be here with you both. It's wonderful. And to be here with all of you. I'm so glad we're taking this time and really appreciating this this day. As I said, you know, this at the beginning, this is the 35th national celebration of Martin Luther King Jr. Day, and it comes at a hard time in our country, a confluence of so many things, as Sharon was saying, and I want to talk about a little bit about the loving kindness. And I first want to offer a huge bow to you, Sharon. When I think of people who have been benefactors in my life, I don't have to, yes, I got a full scholarship to college too, but I'm just going to go right back to you. Since 1995, Sharon has been putting the practices that teach us how to grow our capacity for love, the practices of loving kindness, front and center stage. And that you're doing that really has been life-changing for me as a meditation student, a teacher, and a human being. So I just offer you a great big bow of gratitude for that. And so, we know that where there's fear, when we have fear in our hearts and anxiety and things that scare us, like the, enormous national losses of COVID, there's not so much room for love. And so the practices that we're talking about help us create room, make room in our hearts for love. And when I think it was the day before he was assassinated, Dr. King had been planning to give a sermon. And the name of that sermon was Why America May Go to Hell. And no, I'm not going to say it happened or it came true. But what he was talking about in that sermon was he really was trying to warn the country that we need to use the vast resources that we have to end poverty. Not to end racism, yes, but to end poverty so that, as he said, all of God's children can have the necessities of life. This is the spirit of loving kindness. This is understanding the interconnectedness and interdependence that Sharon was just talking about. And then he went on to say, if we are to succeed, I am now convinced that an absolutely nonviolent method must be ours amid the vast hostilities we face. And I feel like this is true on a personal level too, that we need to develop, Bryce, can you mute yourself? Thanks. We need to develop amid all the things that we encounter in our own hearts, the self-criticism and judgment and the various hostilities that we may direct toward ourselves, those we love, as well as, of course, international, it ripples out from our hearts through the globe, really. And that when he talks about an absolutely nonviolent method, well, this is what we're all practicing by being here together. This is an absolutely nonviolent method to come and not only celebrate Dr. King in the day of service, but do and learn practices that help us do what he urged us to do when he said, never become bitter. Never succumb to the quote exactly, never succumb to the temptation to becoming bitter. As you press for justice, be sure to move with dignity and discipline, using only the weapons of love. So, of course, we have to tend to the country's challenges, to our challenges, to our family's challenges, to all the things that really are challenging in this time, like Thomas was talking about, the challenge of being awash with, misinformation and untruth too. And yet the way that we keep our hearts, this is the future of the world. Like the way that we are keeping our hearts right this minute affects the next minute of our lives. And then that in turn ripples out and affects, right, the next minutes of all the lives of the people we touch or who care about us or that we're close to. So we start here. We start with our own hearts. And to do this in a sustained way, to open our hearts, to sustain any kind of spirit of love, to not become bitter, we have to become this. We have to become carriers of love. It's not just Dr. King's job, it's the job of each one of us to make sure that our movement through the world is a movement of kindness and respect. And maybe not love, of course, at every minute, but kindness and respect for all the elements of our lives. And how do we do this? By just tending our heart and mind. And, there's a lineage that human beings have passed on for thousands of years of practice that Thomas was referring to, the lineage that really is the lineage of Buddhist psychology and philosophy. But this is a universal lineage. All the spiritual traditions of the world. This is what we humans treasure. This is the deep treasure that we discover underneath our fear and anxiety when we're willing to be brave and courageous and sit down and begin to work with ways to cultivate love and appreciation for ourselves and for our own lives, as well as for, the life of this world. So what I would like to do is guide you through a simple practice now. And this is a practice of really, as we tend our body, it's a practice of tending our bodies, our hearts, and our minds. It's a practice that I think supports the good health of our bodies and our immune systems. And it's also, it can be a little playful and joyful because, you know, dwelling in states of love and appreciation, this lightens and gladdens our hearts. So it has a joyful quality too. So once again, just find a way of sitting, standing, lying down, whatever you're doing that is super comfortable for you, and relax. And you can let your eyes close or just, look down gently. And we're going to do a kind of affectionate offering of attention to our bodies, to our hearts, to our minds. And we're going to begin with the body. So taking one of those deep breaths in, breathing in the aliveness of the body and of this moment. And then releasing that breath, just completely relaxing. Releasing all the tension that you may have been carrying today from all these months. And then one more time, breathing in and breathing out, relaxing completely. So I want to begin with, we're going to do this miraculous thing of directing our attention. It's amazing that we have this capacity to direct our attention in different directions and to do this whenever we want. So first, bringing attention to your head and just feeling the head sitting here on top of our bodies. And offering some friendly wishes. May my head relax and be at ease. May my face relax, my jaw. As I say these simple phrases, I want to invite you, if you feel like it, to just quietly repeat them silently to yourself and notice what happens when you do that. May my whole head relax and be at ease. And then bringing attention to the neck and shoulders, where we often store lots of tension. You can raise your shoulders up to your ears and then just let them drop and relax. May my shoulders relax and be at ease. And then bringing attention to your arms and hands. And just offering this wish, may my arms and hands relax and be at ease. Feeling the whole arm, fingers, the palms of the hands, the back of the hands, wherever they're resting. Just relaxing. Now moving your attention to the region of the back. Just feeling the upper back, the middle back, the lower back, the spine. May my back relax and be strong. May my whole back and spine be at ease. And now bringing attention to the whole front of the body. The chest, diaphragm, belly, lower abdomen. May my chest be open and relaxed. May my diaphragm and belly and all the organs inside this trunk of my body, may the whole front of my body relax and be at ease, letting all tension gently drain away. And then bringing attention to the hips and the sit bones, the whole bottom. May this whole region of my body relax and be at ease. And now the legs, bringing your attention to feel the thighs, the knees, the lower legs. And yes, the feet. May my legs relax and be at ease. And may my feet that carry me everywhere I need to go be free from tension, relaxed, and at ease. And with your next breath, just feel that breath sweep through the whole body. Breathing in relaxation and ease. And breathing out, calming, releasing any tension. Appreciating this body just as it is. And now some simple phrases of loving kindness. These phrases are like planting seeds. With each phrase, we plant a seed of intention to grow our capacity for love and understanding, for self-compassion, and for the nurturing that we all need, especially right now. And once again, I invite you to gently, silently repeat the phrase to yourself and listen to what you're saying. We're bringing loving kindness to our hearts and minds with these simple phrases. And don't worry if you don't feel particularly loving or kind right now. Here's planting the seed. And trust me, these seeds, when they're watered with our good intentions and our willingness to take the time to spend with ourselves like this, they absolutely, inevitably will blossom. May I be safe and protected. May I be happy and at peace. May I be healthy and well. And may I live with ease. May I be free from troubles and worries. And may I appreciate my life just as it is. And may I love myself completely, just the way I am. And by offering these wishes, these blessings, these prayers, for all that our hearts hold, all the feelings and struggles. This is a good thing, and yes, a brave thing to do. May I be safe. May I be happy. May I be well. May I be free. And when you're ready, you can open your eyes if they've been closed. And this is how we water the seeds of love so that it can blossom even in the midst of grief, of loss, of anger, of fear. We water the seeds of love so that they can blossom and bring joy into our lives. And even if we aren't feeling joyful in this moment, we can trust that in the crunch, this practice is a good thing to do, and it will take us in that direction. So I just want to close my remarks before we open to some conversation together with a quote again from Dr. King. He says, I'd like someone to say that, and he's talking about when he's gone, on that day, I would like someone to say that I tried to love somebody, that I did try to feed someone. I'd like someone to mention on that day that Martin Luther King Jr. gave his life to serve others, that he wanted to leave a committed life of serving humanity behind. So, we're developing, as this practice, we did it just for ourselves. But we can then radiate to all beings everywhere, to everyone we love, everyone we don't love, because you know what? We don't have to love the people we don't love, but if we free our hearts from, resentment and ill will, and that's a lot of freedom for us. And it also, I often think when, often people will say, well, I don't want to direct loving kindness to somebody that they really don't like. And I say, well, imagine if that person felt loved and if they were happy, would they be acting in these ways that, that are difficult for you? So we're really practicing being able to extend this spirit of kindness and respect and love to accept ourselves, to each other, to connect with all life, as Sharon was saying, and to realize in that way, we're not alone. We may feel lonely, but we are not alone. So somebody just said, I cannot direct any love to Trump. You don't have to, but you can free your heart from holding on to hate, because we know that, hate doesn't solve anything. And we can say, okay, I can never love this particular person, but I'm not going to let my mind be dominated by the swirl of revenge fantasies and grudges and so forth and resentment. That's what we can do with this practice. So I want to open up now for some conversation with you, with Sharon, with Thomas. There's lots of us here. So obviously, if you have a question or something or a comment, that we'd love to hear from you, but we aren't going to be able, obviously, to answer everybody. But there is, I think, a raised hand function in the reactions section at the bottom of your Zoom screen. Linda has raised her hand, and Kathy will call on you and invite you to unmute yourself if there's something that you would like to say.
Yeah, it looks like Linda's is the first hand up. Linda, you go ahead and unmute yourself and ask a question or comment.
I'm puzzled how other people may have dealt with this problem. Recently, my only sibling, my sister, is a Trumpster, and her heart is so closed and her mind is so closed to possibility that she actually took to viciously attacking me for some of my Facebook posts. I mean, my first thought would have been, if these are offensive to you, then stop reading. But she's my sister. What do other people do with people who are so vehement and their minds and hearts are so closed that it actually pains me, literally?
Sharon, do you want to take this one?
Well, I'll start. I would love to hear from some other people first. And I think this is a place where I think two things have operated for me. One is the understanding that offering love or love and compassion to somebody does not mandate a certain kind of action, like staying in touch. It really doesn't. Ram Dass's guru, Neem Karoli Baba, was very famous for this saying, never throw anyone out of your heart. Never throw anyone out of your heart. And our friend Sylvia Boorstein at one point had an addendum to that. She said, never throw anyone out of your heart. You might throw them out of your life, but never throw them out of your heart. And, I'm not saying that's what you need to do, but that pressure we feel sometimes to always show up and physically be, now we can't physically be present, but, in ordinary times, but maybe out of compassion for yourself, that's not totally happening right now. And that has to be okay. So whenever I teach loving kindness, I try to separate the freedom of the heart, as Trudy just said, from a particular action. Because if we feel a particular action is mandated, then it's frightening. I have to give away more money. I have to say yes. I have to let them move back in. I have to, and it's not like that. And the other part really is I use loving kindness sometimes when I don't know what else to do. I don't have a fix for some really difficult situation. And the willingness to stay connected, even energetically, is what's so important because it is so painful.
Well, I do think one of the things that Thomas said, that you need to hold your truth and not be swayed by someone else's lack of understanding, it's been helpful to me. And I thank him again for reminding me that when you know your truth, that you have to be true to yourself and hold on to that. Even with family members, that it's hard to bear, but you still have to hold on to that.
And I also want to invite others. There's so much wisdom here in this gathering. If people would like to speak to Linda's question, I know this is a question that comes up every single time right now that we teach loving kindness. Feel free to put your response, how you're dealing with this in the chat function. And this way we can share the wisdom, even though there's not time for everybody, to have the floor and speak. And Linda, check out and see what people are saying to you, okay?
I would just like to say to Linda's inquiry is that I was somewhat of a loss of the dynamics of the family dynamics that are also playing out that don't make the news. People are looking at a lot of their family members that went into that Capitol and who are now being arrested and investigated and so forth. And secondly, there was just a crack of light that came in to me just a moment ago. And it was about the three poisons, which are greed, hatred, and delusion. And it made me, and an inquiry came to me that said, Thomas, when was the last time, can you remember when you were under the grip of delusion? When you believed a lie? When were you out of touch in some alternate reality? I'm not here to answer that question, but I'm just raising that as some sort of introspective work so that whatever truth we do know, we have to ask and see if it's still liberating us.
Right. I agree.
Is it true just because, am I holding on to it just because it's what I know? But is that freedom becoming a bondage for me now? Is it still liberating me? And I think this is where we have to stay in the dance of discovering and investigating what's true through our mindfulness practice, because I think there's some things that were useful at one time that might not, we have to find out if it's still offering us liberation.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Linda. Lee, yours was the next hand up if you want to unmute yourself.
Hi, everybody, and thank you very much for all the speakers. That was so helpful, and I really very grateful. Unfortunately, me too, I lost a lot of friends, and I had to, from social media, I had to just restrict a lot of them because, and it's happening in my family in different country, they have the same situation, and we are all divided. And the problem is that, yeah, we do have different opinions and we respect, but it's so easy to go personal. That's the problem. That's when we get hurt, that things get dragged and then we'll go personal, especially with family and friends. And then we all lose the point of the political disagreement or any disagreement, and then we become personal. And that I find so it's impossible to deal with. So, and then that's my dilemma. What do you do when things go personal? Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. What do you do when things get personal? It's so easy for things to get personal. And I think, I learned something from Van Jones, the CNN commentator. He's written a book with lots of examples of how he's reached across really big differences, groups that are very opposed to one another, with simple stories of the humanity that we share. I think one example that I remember was he brought people from central Los Angeles, mostly African-American leaders, to meet with leaders in West Virginia who were dealing with the opioid epidemic. Now, these are folks who really didn't even want to be in the same room mostly with each other, but he asked everybody to bring a photograph of somebody they had lost and to share them. And in a very short time, people were hugging each other and crying together, because so any practical ways that we can find to join with each other over things that are simply our shared humanity, is one way to make it less personal. And look, we don't have the solutions to this. There are a lot of people who are working on the divisive nature of social media. And I'm sure you've watched it, Lee, but if you haven't, I really recommend the documentary, The Social Dilemma.
I did.
Okay.
Of course I did.
Yeah,
Of
yeah,
course.
yeah.
Yeah. Well,
So do we have room for one more person? Actually, we are supposed to end in 2 minutes. So, no.
Yeah, we have two people with their hands raised, so let me know if you think.
All right, we'll do one more. We'll do one more.
All right, Liz was the next one with her hand up. Sorry, Simone.
I just have a short response to the painful question that was raised with regards to how do you deal with the anger and hostility coming from people you love, and how do you practice compassion in those situations? And my thoughts just are that to truly practice compassion, we must also practice personal boundaries with integrity. Because if we don't keep our hearts safe, we lose capacity to practice love.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you, everybody. I know we could just keep going. It's wonderful to be together on this day and in this way. I needed this personally, just to get personal for a moment. I really needed this. Yeah, thank you. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for coming. Thank you for, being part of InsightLA's Presidential Inauguration Committee Day of Service in honor of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Thank you. And thank you, Sharon. Thank you, Thomas.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm so grateful to Kathy, to Mark, to all of you for coming together. When we come together and do this together, isn't that the best antidote to the fear and anxiety and isolation we can get into? So, yeah, anything you'd like to say, Sharon or Thomas, in closing?
No, just thank you. It's wonderful to see you, Trudy and Thomas, and everybody that I can see in little boxes, and to feel everybody here together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Thomas.
I would just like to say, I actually feel better after this short bit of time with the community. And yeah, I mean, I'm as a teacher, I'm feeling what you feel, so I'm really living, learning, and loving the best that I can at this time. So I'm just happy that we're here to do that together. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. May we all live and learn and love as best we can during this time and forever. Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
thank you very much.